The movie begins on a planet called Barsoom, which is on the point of extinction. For thousands of years, the planet's two great cities, Helium and Zodanga, have been at odds. One day, the airships are engaged in a fierce battle, and when a blue ray of energy destroys all except the one belonging to Sab-Thon, who is the ruler of Zodanga, he is then approached by three men who claim to be God's emissaries, known as the Therns. Matai Shang, the Therns' leader, offers him a mysterious blue device that permits him to discharge energy bolts. The Therns explain that they are the goddess's representatives, and she has chosen to help Sab-Thon in this battle. With this, Shang orders him to put his new powers to the test, and Sab-Thon quickly begins firing energy bolts at all of the enemy spacecraft, easily winning the war. The scene then shifts to New York City in 1881. A man named Edgar is summoned to his wealthy uncle John Carter's mansion. When Edgar arrives, he discovers that his uncle has died and left everything to him. The lawyer then takes Edgar to John's mausoleum where his body is being kept in an open tomb. But bizarrely, the mausoleum's door only opens from the inside. The lawyer then hands John's diary to Edgar, which he proceeds to read. The story begins in Arizona after the Civil War. John Carter is a renowned former Confederate Army captain who is now searching for gold. One day, while getting into a fight with a local bartender, a man shows up and knocks John out. Later, he awakens and discovers a guy named Colonel Powell standing in front of him. Powell wants John to help his U.S. cavalry soldiers in their fight against the Apache. However, John says that he's had enough and refuses to fight any longer. Powell responds by knocking him out again, and John spends the next few hours dreaming about his deceased family. After waking up, John knocks out a guard and rides Colonel Powell's horse out. Powell and his men soon begin following him, but they're forced to halt when they discover several Apache warband members riding horses. While John negotiates with the natives, a soldier fires, resulting in a battle. Now, John flees from there, but when he sees Powell being hit, he returns to save the man. The two then seek refuge in a cave, but the Apache pursues them. However, they immediately run away when they see a spider symbol above the cave. John then ventures deeper into the cave to explore. Soon after, he discovers a chamber with peculiar symbols and walls lined with gold. However, a man comes behind him who is one of the Therns we saw at the start of the movie. The two then begin to fight, prompting John to shoot the man, but just when he notices the man is holding a bright medallion, John hears the dying guy say, "Barsoom!" So he repeats the words as he takes the medallion. Suddenly, a light flashes from the medallion and John awakens on the Barsoom planet. He tries to walk but ends up falling, appearing to float. Following that, John spots a group of green creatures known as Tharks approaching him. And when they spot him, they begin firing until their leader Tarkus orders them to stop. Tarkus then asks John to jump again, understanding that he is not a native. John takes the chance to rush in the direction of Tarkos' weapons, but he's outmatched before he can fight. Following this, the Tarkos take John to their home, while the Tarkos take the medallion from him, which was his only way home. Meanwhile, in Helium, Princess Deja is getting ready to give a speech about her latest invention. However, her father, King Tardos, and his council, who are discussing Zodanga's attack with some new bright weapon, suddenly interrupt her. Deja reveals that she's created a device called Ninth Ray that can harvest that blue light. However, Tardos dismisses the group and tells Deja that to stop the battle, she must marry Sab-Thon, which she clearly doesn't want to. That evening, John is placed with the newborns by the Tharks. Moments later, a female Thark named Sola gives John a drink, after which he can understand their language. The following day, the Tharks order John to jump in front of everyone. They then notice Sab-Thon and his ships pursuing a helium ship operated by Deja. Sab-Thon prepares to shoot down the helium ship, but is stopped by Matai Shang because they need Deja alive. So, as they bring the ship down, they look for Deja, but they don't find her. Meanwhile, John notices Deja from afar and rushes to save her. The Tharks begin to applaud John, who is now battling against Zodanga's warriors. Soon, John changes the course of the fight, allowing Helium to win, but their ship also crashes. Sab-Thon then follows John, engaging in a fierce struggle that Sab-Thon quickly wins. When he's about to kill John, the Tharks start shooting at the ships, allowing the man to flee. Following that, the Tharks welcome John as one of their own warriors, and Tarkos makes him his right hand. At night, Deja tells John that they are on the planet Barsoom, which surprises him. Deja then leads him to the Tharks' temple, where humans are not permitted. Meanwhile, Sola appears behind them, pleading with them to stop, and when they enter, Sola informs them that Therns are messengers of the goddess Isus. She also informs them of the gates of Ys, where they believe John may find the answers that he's looking for. Deja then promises to take John there if he succeeds in getting them out. Just then, Tharks apprehends the three and sentences them to death for breaking into the temple. Later, Tarkos requests that everyone leave him alone so that he can cut John's hands off. He then tells John that he is Sola's father and does not want her to die at the hands of the Tharks. Tarkos then leads the three to a tent, where he frees them and returns the medallion. But when the Tharks return to the room later, they discover that Tarkos has betrayed them. Due to this, Tarkos' rival named Tal Hazus seizes control and declares himself the new leader. On the other hand, Sola, John, and Deja travel to the River Ys to unravel the temple mystery. Along the trip, Sola warns John that Deja is leading them wrong. A furious John then decides to abandon her, realizing she may have been using him. Deja finally admits that she has a personal stake in this because she's about to be married off to the Zodangan prince and may be killed in the process. However, John assures her that he will help her, but they should visit the gates of Ys. The three sail down the Ys River till they approach a gigantic inverted pyramid. When John and Deja get to the top, they notice a peculiar blue energy emerging on the ground. Deja understands that this is the strength of the ninth ray from which she built her weapon. They're also aware that John's appearance on Mars is most likely the result of a replica of himself being transmitted from Earth to Mars. Suddenly, an army of warhoons approaches, led by Matai Shang. John heroically tells Deja and Sola to flee and confronts the warhoon army alone. As he fights with them, he recalls burying his own family. Moments after that, John stands on a heap of dead warhoons until he collapses. Suddenly, a helium ship comes and it fires on the warhoons, scattering them. Tardos reunites with Deja, who digs John out of the mound and discovers him to be alive. Just then, Sabthan arrives to help John with his medical needs, but Deja pulls a gun on him instead. Seeing this, Tardos intervenes, alleging that Sabthan joined them out of concern for her. He's arrived without a weapon or warriors to ask Deja to marry him and put a stop to the war. At this point, Deja has no other option but to end the battle, so she grudgingly accepts to marry him. Hours later, John awakens in a luxurious chamber surrounded by Zodangan guards. He is then contacted by one of Deja's soldiers, who requests that he pretend to take him captive. After knocking up a few guards, they make it outside, where the guard orders him to jump into a specific tower. They eventually reach Deja's room, and once they're alone, Deja asks John to fight for her people. She then hands him the medallion and teaches her words on how to use it. Then, the guards enter the room just as John begins to repeat the sentences. And when Deja turns back, John is gone, so she assumes he went back to Earth. However, John is actually hidden in the ceiling, and when he tries to go outside, he is quickly caught by Matai Shang. Now, Matai Shang's capacity to transform into any creature around him surprises John. He shows John the wedding ceremony and tells him that Deja must die since she discovered the ninth ray. According to Matai Shang, the ninth ray must be among those who can easily manipulate, such as Sabthan. He claims that Deja's death will assure Zodanga's dominion and the downfall of Barsoom. As Matai Shang is ready to kill John, an alien dog he had previously befriended comes to his rescue. It bites Matai Shang's wrist device, freeing John. The guards follow him, but John directs them to collide with the city's moving legs, while Sola shoots down the remaining pursuer. Now John prepares his flyer and encourages Sola to board, but she's hesitant because Tharks do not fly. Still, the three arrive in the city of Tharks only to discover that Tal Hajuns is now the leader. Now, the Tharks imprison John, and he meets a beaten Tarkos inside. Tal Hajus then surrounds John and Tarkos with huge animals known as white apes. In front of the entire Thark populace, John succeeds to capture the apes. He then challenges Tal Hajus to a battle, which he easily wins. Everyone applauds John as the new leader of the Tharks. Following that, John and the Tharks army enter Zodanga, only to discover that the wedding is in helium. John tries to persuade Tarkos to fly so they can get in time for helium, but he refuses. Now John hovers over helium alone and notices the Zodanga troops outside. So he interrupts the wedding to warn everyone, prompting Matai Shang to alert Sabthan. Following that, the army of Tharks and Jon march to Deja and Sobthon's wedding. Jon arrives just in time to avert the wedding. Just then, Sobthon tries to kill Deja after seeing him, but Jon intervenes just in time. A new fight between the warriors of the two cities erupts. The Tharks, on the other hand, are now on Helium's side, and the Zodanga is quickly defeated, but Matai Shang escapes with Jon's medallion. Finally, Zodanga surrenders and Jon proposes to Deja, and they end up getting married. Later, Deja discovers an anxious Jon on the balcony, though he promises to return to their bed shortly. Following that, Jon throws away the medallion, believing that he now belongs to Barsoom. However, a guard transforms into Matai Shang and brings back Jon to Earth. Moments after that, Jon awakens in the cave and tries to furiously escape without the medallion, but fails to do so. At that moment, Jon realizes that there must be more Therns on the planet and spends the next 10 years searching for another medallion. He uses the gold he found in the cave and becomes extremely wealthy. Eventually, he appears to uncover something on the Ornki Islands. He then prepares a crypt on his land so that he might return to Barsoom and place his body there in safety. Jon writes in his notebook that if his body dies on Earth, his duplicates on Mars dies as well, which explains his unusual funeral arrangements. He then informs Edgar that he is the key and fears that the Therns would destroy his body. In the present, Edgar hurries to the mausoleum, and after a few seconds he unlocks the door only to find the crypt empty. A Thern appears behind Edgar and is about to murder him when he suddenly gets shot. And when Edgar turns around, he sees Jon standing outside with a gun. At this point, Jon confesses that he took a medicine that caused him to appear dead. Finally, Edgar finds out that he was only bait to draw out a Thern and allow Jon to collect the medallion to go back. Now, Jon asks Edgar to guard his mausoleum from now on and enters there. He lies on the bed with the medallion and chants the verses that will take him back to Barsoom. And the movie comes to an end.